Hello sewists! Here are my tips on the Jalie 2212 quarter zip. I'm going to go through the construction sequence, mostly the zipper and the collar, and just provide some additional details that might help you out here assembling this quarter zip. So the first thing you'll be doing is this seam right here. And the only confusion that you might arise here is whether you sew this part or this part. But if you lay out your yoke pieces like this, you'll see that this is a 90-degree angle here, and this is more slanted, and this is the one you want to sew. Also, another tip would be there's a little notch that comes out there, something shaped like this. So that's not what you're sewing. That's where the zipper is going to go here. Okay, so just sew that and top stitch it, and then you are ready to attach the collar. Now, one thing about the collar that was confusing for me when I started making these is I wanted to attach this side with this notch to the garment, because that's more how patterns I'm used to would do it. The instructions do tell you to match the spots, the clips there for the shoulder seams that match the yoke. Although mine didn't really match up for some reason, but I don't know, the collar matched up perfectly to the yoke. So the important thing is this is the side that you're sewing to the garment. So here you see the yoke, you can't really see the collar, but you're just doing that long straight edge. It's really important when you do this seam that these ends line up nicely, because when you flip that collar up and you're in this position, this has to be really straight and lined up, because that's where you're putting the zipper. And if the yoke is sticking out on one side, it's going to make it a lot harder to put that zipper in. If it's just a hair off, you could trim the yoke. If the collar sticks out on one side, you definitely don't want to trim the collar. It will no longer be symmetrical on both these sides. So I suggest maybe even base those edges, glue stick, really pinwheel something, so that these ends are very precise. All right, and where you're attaching it is along here. Okay, so now this becomes a collar like that, kind of. Okay, and you've got this new straight edge here, right, which is this part here, where you're going to attach the zipper. Alright, so you've got the collar connected you've got both yokes connected, you've got the collar sewn onto the yokes. Now it's time for the zipper. First thing you're going to want to do is reinforce this place where the zipper's going with a fusible, a woven. I just use Wonder Underbacked muslin fabric. I just block fuse a bunch of it, and I just take my rotary and a ruler and cut a strip about 1/2 inch wide, and I just fuse that, just iron that right onto the wrong side of this, where the zipper is going to go here on both sides. So right on the wrong side, not what's shown here, but on the wrong side, I'm just going to put a little strip of fusible there, and I'm going to make that edge just go right to the edge of fabric. And since I've cut that with a rotary cutter, it's going to be a nice, super clean, straight edge. And that could even, be like a double check that this is a nice straight edge I'm applying the zipper to. And that's going to make your zipper go on straight and look better. Alright, so you've got some fusible there to secure that stretchy knit. It's not only going to make the collar stand up nicer and make that whole area look better and keep it straight, but it'll prevent the fabric from buckling and warping and looking bad. So that's a very important step. And there's one more useful thing about it. You can use that piece of fusible to train the seam here the way you want it to go, because even though I'm pointing here to the right side of the garment, you're doing this fusible on the wrong side. I like that seam to go up toward the top of the collar. I press that up, although I'm not really pressing fleece, but I finger press that up, and when I iron that fusible on with a press cloth, carefully with fleece or polyester, I'm going to make sure that seam goes up, and that seam will be caught in the up position. Now that's just the way I like to do it, because I end up hand stitching, slip stitching that facing collar onto that seam, and I tuck that seam underneath there. So that's how I like to do it. You could press them either way, but whatever way you're going to press them or make them both go the same way, and train it that way inside that strip of, underneath that strip of fusible, so that seam is trapped going the right direction. Okay, so you've got one side of your zipper, you're ready to sew on one side of your zipper, and you're laid out just like this picture. It's really helpful to have a extra long zipper like they show here. That way you don't have to worry about getting the zipper pull out of the way. If you do use a regular zipper that has a stop on the top of it like this, I mean, you can do that, that's fine, but then you want to really be careful that you get this, just a seam allowance from the top, and be accurate with that. If you're using zipper tape, you can just, go right off that edge when you sew this zipper to this side. Okay, so you got right side of the zipper down. You can't see the pull here. It's tucked in there against the right side of the fabric. And you've got you're leaving three seam allowance on top. And if you've got a stop there, if you got zipper tape, just make it go right to the top. And they suggest in the instructions zigzagging and then straight stitching it on, and that works pretty well. I think that's a good idea. After you got that side of the zipper stitched on, the instructions tell you to do the same thing on the other side. If you put zippers in garments crossing seams, there's a little bit of a trick to this. You got to do this right. First of all, you want to make sure you're putting it, in the correct place without any weird twists. So what I do is I take this zipper after I've sewn it on, and I just flop it over. Okay, so I just flop it so I can now see the pull. And then I take this side of the fabric and I kind of fold this raw edge under the way I want it to look. And then I hold it against the zipper the way I want it to be. I kind of pinch it there. And then I flip, without letting go, I flip the whole thing wrong side out and put a pin there. And I'm not pinning it exactly the way it's going to be lined up, but I'm just pinning it so I know I don't have any weird twist in there. So now I just know that I've got it, I'm attaching it to the right side with the correct side. You're still right sides together. Wow. All right. Now, here's the trick that's not mentioned in these directions that's really important, that they do mention in the Alex, though, I believe. So, here it is. So I've got, in this photo you can see I've attached the zipper on one side, and now I've flipped it out and flipped it open here. This is serged because I did this thing where I put some fabric on the edge there to hide the back of the zipper and make it pretty and soft. So I stick a pin down here because I want to mark this place. I want to know exactly where this seam crosses the zipper teeth. So I put a pin in there. And then when I go to the back side, a pin sticking out, I use a little Freon erasable pen to make a mark here, and then on the opposite side, because this seam has to go right there. That's really important that go there so it looks good. Then what I do next is I baste. So now I'm on that other side that isn't attached yet, and I see my black mark here, and that black mark I know has to line up with the seam. And so I just do a long stitch. I just sew about 1 inch here. And I don't sew way over here. I sew right near the teeth, right where I'm actually going to be sewing, because it could shift if I sew it over here. This basting line has two purposes. One, it's a check to make sure that zipper is lined up correctly, but two, it's going to hold it there while you sew that zipper on. So that's why I want it to be right where the stitches are actually going to, pretty near the teeth, where it's going to be actually sewn. The zipper is actually going to be sewn on to the garment. After I've done that, I can go back and look at the right side, and I'm seeing here that this is lined up beautifully. Okay? If it's not, you can just pull that thread and baste again. But now you can see this is loose. This is before I've sewn that zipper. And I'm just checking that that this is going to look good here, that these are going to line up, because it looks really bad if those don't line up.